Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I am delighted to welcome a very respected and accomplished digital wellness entrepreneur from Essex, UK, Mr. Colin Corby. Colin, welcome to the show.
Hi. Good morning. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Colin is the chief executive and founder of Technology Wellbeing Limited, which is the digital detox and well-being organization. He's also the creator of the Digital Detox Coach. So, Colin, before we talk digital detox, tell me a little bit about your own journey and what was the inspiration to start Technology Wellbeing?
Okay, so I'm going to try and keep this brief. So, in the 1990s, I had a great job and was involved in lots of cutting edge technologies. But the work and the pressure was so high that I started to suffer from stress. Stress wasn't talked about in those days. And after a series of tests and inconclusive tests, I decided I need to get fit and healthy again. And so I then went on a journey of just trying to get fit, and I took up swimming, and then I took up triathlon, and then I started competing, and then I did 4 Ironman triathlons. And in that whole process, I got fascinated by the way that we think can affect what we can do. So, and it also enabled me to have great resilience for stress and continue in a technology career. And then in around about 2016, I had the opportunity of doing something different. And I thought, well, I love technology.
Yeah.
I love the whole idea of exercise and mindset. And I noticed that we're spending all this time on our smartphones and computers.
Right.
And so loads of research on, well, why was that? Because it affected me and everybody. We're all the same. And then I thought, well, okay, it's brilliant because I love technology. I love the psychology and the mindset. And I love exercise. I'll just smash them all together. And so in 2018, I created the Digital Detox Coach. And the coaching idea is about incorporating the mindset of athletes and the willpower of athletes to allow us to live sustainably with technology as human beings.
Yeah.
So that's very brief.
What a fascinating journey. Thank you. So, Colin, can you explain the concept of digital detox and why has it become so essential today?
So the first thing is the definition of digital detox, because if you ask somebody, they'll say, oh, a digital detox is a weekend away or a week away in nature and have no connections whatsoever. But my definition of digital detox is anything from as short a period as 20 seconds, where you're resting your eyes from a screen, to 10 to 15 minutes for a rest and recovery break between video meetings or screen activities, and all the way to those wonderful weekend breaks. So that's the definition. And why is digital detox so important? Well, we're humans. And we're biological creatures. And so we've evolved, like all other animals, to be able to live in the physical world. And we're also social animals. And all of those things are really, really important to our well-being. Our brains are not like hardware and software. They're so much more. And we're integrated. There isn't a brain, there isn't a body. It's all the same thing. But technology, we've created technology to make the whole world easier for us, everything easier for us. But there are unintended consequences.
Right.
So by 2030, it's estimated, certainly in the UK and Western Europe, that we'll be 35% less active. And a sedentary lifestyle has serious implications and accounts for as many deaths as smoking.
Wow.
And we think we don't need sleep. Evolution created sleep in creatures, I don't know, since the dawn of time. Even dinosaurs had to sleep. And the reason is it serves a really, really important function. We all know you do a late night, you just can't function the following morning. So we need sleep. Um, our attention spans. Professor Gloria Mark did some lovely research over, 10, 15 years, and she ended up with information workers being only able to focus on a screen for 47 seconds, and it's been diminishing all the while. The 15-second TikTok video. So our attention span is so much shorter.
Correct.
And it has ramifications. We
Correct.
outsource our skills and knowledge to AI as well, and we're continuously bombarded. So really, digital detox is about regaining that balance
Mm.
with us being humans, as well as being able to live in the modern world, and that's sustainability. So, because we've made things so much easier for ourselves,
Correct.
we now have to concentrate on being humans again, on what we need to be able to perform at our best
Mm.
and live a healthy life.
Well said. Well, great response. But tell me, do you think in today's highly technology-driven world, a digital detox is sustainable in the long run?
Well, I actually twist the whole thing around.
Mm.
Is it sustainable not to
Mm.
digital detox, not to have 10 to 15-minute breaks, not to have enough sleep?
Mm.
I mean, imagine investing in a company
Mm.
where the board only got 4 hours sleep a night.
Mm.
Now, the decisions would start to get poorer and poorer.
Mm.
That investment wouldn't look very good for very long. Or if you went to see a surgeon and the surgeon hadn't had to, enough
Yeah.
sleep or had
Mm.
so it's not sustainable being connected 24/7.
Mm.
It's not sustainable for organizations. It's not sustainable for us. It's
Well,
not a proper way to live.
very well said. When I was preparing for my conversation with you, I was also fascinated to read about your work in the area of technology and psychology, impacting our mental health. How do you see this collision between technology and psychology?
So technology, it 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 isn't a thing in a sense. It doesn't have a self. It doesn't understand anything that it's doing. It's a form of programming. So, and also the technology is commercialized. So the objective of media technology is to sell more advertising. So the objective of a news channel is to be a popular news channel. Even the public service broadcast, it's all about popularity.
Right.
It was once famously said by the CEO of Netflix that their biggest competitor was sleep.
Mm.
So technology has its own drivers,
Yeah.
and a lot of those things are work against us. So, for example, it's very easy to get technology to instantly provide us with new information, new excitement, new rewards.
Mm.
And because we don't have time to think, then we just become followers.
Mm. Amazing.
So, for people to have security and feel safe, they have to feel they have some control over their environment. And if we become followers and we're always responding to external stimulus,
Mm.
we won't be able to respond to our internal stimulus.
Mm. Very interesting. And would you have any examples of any organizations that have successfully adopted a digital detox practice?
So, certainly within Europe, UK, maybe North America, well-being programs are pretty universal. So all companies will have well-being programs. Within the well-being programs, there'll be digital well-being programs. I've not seen digital detox being specifically introduced by companies, but companies have things like no email days. Other companies have gone down to 4-day weeks. Some really progressive companies, I think a lot of Germany companies have this no emails after 5 o'clock or after the working hours.
Yeah.
And you have to bear in mind that the right to disconnect has been gathering pace. So some European countries already have a law.
Mm.
Others are considering it. Even the state of California recently considered it, although it didn't implement it. So in a way, there's regulatory pressure. There's the cost pressures of well-being. And then also you've got your individual people issues associated with it. So it's not a clear picture. It's there are some early adopters, but I think it's the complexity
Yeah.
is the problem here.
Very well said. What, in your view, are some of the biggest misconceptions about the role of well-being in leadership?
So the biggest one I feel is that it's seen as a sign of weakness.
Yes.
I mean, if you've fought hard to get to a senior position, you've had to really up your game. But if you to say, actually, I need some more sleep, or I need a break, or whatever, it's seen as a sign of weakness. So I think one of my challenges is how do you make digital detox and digital well-being sexy
Yeah.
for leaders? And so I've adopted this idea that leaders are effectively business endurance athletes.
Mhm.
Now, everybody knows what athletes do. Athletes, they eat a good diet. They have lots of rest and recovery. They're very, very focused. They're all about looking after themselves. They're about taking constructive coaching and feedback.
Yeah.
So I've introduced this idea of business endurance athletes to try and tip the problem on its head and saying, look, you want to be your best at work. You want to be the best for your company. And therefore, you've got to look after yourself because you're an athlete. So that's what I've tried to do with that.
But, that would also mean a paradigm change in the thinking of an organization. Because
Yes.
traditionally, it has been the harder you work, the more results you bring in, the quicker your promotion and the more money you get. And now you're
Yeah.
saying, slow down, do a digital detox. What happens to careers and ambitions?
Well, this is the interesting thing because it's counterintuitive. It's because, as you say, you've been brought up, you must put the hours in, you must be 24/7, you must do this, you must do that.
Mm.
And a lot of companies are still, and I use the term macho,
Yeah.
where they're male dominated
Mm.
and they have this competitive thing around them. And so, yeah, that's a real mind change. But then coming back to the business athlete, it doesn't matter, which sport, which country, it doesn't matter. The athletes have the focus on what's necessary to perform. It would be great to have shareholder pressure
Mm.
and investor pressure to get to put onto these leadership teams to say, look, I'm going to invest my money with you. I need to make sure that those top people are able to continuously perform to the quality that we'd expect. So that would be great.
Amazing. Can you also talk a little bit about the impact physical well-being? And you are an endurance, not just a runner, but you do a lot of other physical training as well. What is the impact of physical well-being on mental resilience for leaders in high stress environments?
So the mind and the body are fully integrated. So the health of the body affects the health of the mind.
Mm.
So if we use my example where I was suffering stress, so stress is a fight or flight response. What happens is the heart rate starts to go higher and higher and higher to try and get more oxygen to the brain. And it gets to the point where it can't go any higher. You start to see stars and you'll pass out. By doing physical exercise, you're training the heart. So the heart, well, my heart does, it can go from a very low resting to very quickly to a very high heartbeat, then back down again and up again. So in terms of resilience to stress, just using the training of the heart, it's much, it's much easier to be more resilient to stress. But also, by doing the physical exercise, you get in touch with your body. Something's going to ache, something's going to hurt. You're going to know about it.
Mm,
And if you run, you create a physical distance.
mm,
And most of our language is related to movement in
mm.
the physical world.
Right.
So it's almost like by physically moving, whether that's walking or running, you put distance between you and the problem.
Mm,
And that's an interesting mindfulness technique as
mm.
well. You're putting your problems behind you.
Right.
So language and movement is all interconnected.
Well said. Colin, I want to move now to another segment, which is about cultural blindness and the impact of technology on the planet. And that's an area that you have done some work in.
Yes.
What do you mean by cultural blindness in the context of technology, and how does this manifest itself in organizations?
So let's think about the definition of cultural blindness. The one that I used, and I used in an article,
Yeah.
it's the inability to see something or understand a particular matter might be because the culture that you're in or your personal experience either blocks it out
Mm,
or because it's sufficiently limiting to make it difficult to see an alternative
mm,
position. But I also want to throw into the mix a groupthink. I
mm,
love groupthink because it
mm,
keeps coming
mm,
up. It's a psychological phenomenon that occurs within a group of people in which the desire to have harmony within the group results in irrational and dysfunctional behavior.
mm,
So those two things, particularly with organizations. So if we look at algorithms and AI, we accept
mm,
the output of these without knowing anything
mm,
about the quality.
mm,
Where else would that happen? Now, there are exceptions. There are, in the medical arena, there are proper peer-reviewed field trials, and
mm,
you do know the quality. But generally speaking, we know nothing about the quality, and it's really hard to find out what's going on. So we are blind. So we take the view that we're blind and we just accept the answers.
mm.
It's very easy to be cultural blind because we've been brought up with assumptions since we were very young, and we never question them. And it's this ability to question them. So if you go through history, there's equality between men and women. It's a classic one. If we look back on that and we say, well, why on earth was its society structured in that way? Or if you take the horrible thing about slavery,
Yeah.
how on earth could that have happened? And it's because those cultures were blind, because that was the norm.
Correct.
So because of the age of AI, we're getting a whole new host of things which are blind. And in the UK, there was a terrible case of miscarriage of justice for the sub postmasters. And that was due to an old-fashioned financial computer system having errors, and people adopted the view that it was correct.
Mm.
And so many people were disadvantaged. And it's still running on. It's about 15 years
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. But you talk of cultural blindness, and let me take the word cultural out from that. And I wanted to get your perspective on, you know, how do different cultures respond to digital overload? Because when I look at my own country, India, the entire growth of this country, entire may be wrong, but a very large segment of the growth of
Mm.
this country has come from its young who have managed to uh, get a handle on digital technology.
Yes,
Right.
yes. And
And
I've worked with Indian companies and certainly in the IT area,
correct.
it's
So,
a,
culturally, uh, it would be very difficult for someone to just say that, okay, now switch off your computer and start doing something else. Is this more of a developed world perspective of digital wellness, or is it something which is going to start having some kind of implications on people's health and well-being in the short term.
So I'm going to be a little bit provocative,
Yeah.
and
I asked you a provocative question.
I'm going to say that it's a rich country
Mm,
issue
mm,
because all of the basic needs. Now, rich
yeah,
countries have problems still, but
absolutely.
generally speaking, all of the basic needs have been met.
Mm,
So we have enough free time and resources to worry about
mm,
the issues. So if you think about life expectancy, so you could equally say, well, those countries with a high life expectancy are the more wealthy countries, generally speaking,
mm,
and they have the time to worry about these
mm,
things. So if you're in a country where you're really still trying to get enough resources, then digital well-being is not going to be on the top of the agenda. So I'm
correct.
going to say it's going to be a rich country thing currently.
Well said. I have time for two more questions for you. What role do you see AI, and this just about coming into our lives, certainly the lives of common people? What is the role of AI in addressing or exacerbating the negative impacts of technology on mental health?
So AI is a very general
Yeah,
thing, and it includes all of the wonderful developments within the medical field.
yeah,
It incorporates the ability to have personalized health and mental health care because up until the advent of AI, it's been too complex to do that. And the effectiveness of drugs and all those other things depend on the individual as much as the effectiveness of the drugs. So there is a lot of good things that are going to happen with respect to AI. But then on the other side, AI is creating more pollution, climate change pollution, than the aviation and shipping industries. It's creating enormous amounts of e-waste. And all of the developments to help us with those things, they're not going to produce any net zero results
yeah.
anytime soon. In terms of mental health,
Mm,
if your laptop
mm,
is monitoring your every move,
mm,
which you can buy these things
mm,
from big companies,
mm,
and if it starts to take ownership of it and saying, well, you're not performing well enough, or did you have enough sleep? To a certain extent, that's the wrong way of doing it.
mm, mm,
The right way of doing it is for people to be in touch with their bodies
mm,
rather than AI. I mean, we can all have AI watches, we can have
mm.
AI
Yeah.
clothing. They can monitor everything,
Mm,
except that the accuracy of what they're monitoring is
mm,
sometimes not very good. And what they're not monitoring might be even more important.
mm,
So I think AI, in terms of mental health, I think we can have an over reliance on it.
mm. Well
But
said.
it's going to do some wonderful things as well.
Absolutely. Well said. Great response. And my last question for you, Colin. How do you envision the future of work, well-being, and technology coexisting with one another in a more balanced way?
So the first step is for organizations to put a much higher value on the human,
Mm,
non-measurable aspects
mm,
of of business, of economy, and all of those sorts of things. Currently, humans are a little bit dispensable,
mm,
and there's a dumbing down of work in a lot of organizations. So AI, anything that can be measured, sooner or later, it might be viable to automate it. So you've really got to think about what it is that humans are very good at
mm,
from an organizational point of view and put a higher value. Also, governments need to do the same thing. Now, as individuals, whatever work we're doing today, in 5 years' time, those skills might have been replaced or not required. So everybody's got to have a mindset of this continuous learning. And in addition to skills, which we need for work and other aspects, we would be wise to focus on human skills.
Very
And
interesting.
if you focus on human skills, then you're in a sense investing in the future. Because in 50 years' time, who knows what work will be?
Correct.
And assuming AI hasn't replaced us, the role of humans, the real skill of humans, will be how to deal with other humans.
Yeah, yeah. And who knows? Maybe the next generations of human beings, while the world is being run by technology, the next generation of human beings are busy colonizing Mars and, building
Yes.
homes in an area which is completely different. But on that note, Colin, thank you so much for speaking to me about your own journey. I think this has been a fascinating discussion on technology well-being. We spoke about digital detox and its importance, and I'm in complete agreement. I mean, we need to have lights out or screen time out for every one of us. I think we covered some interesting ground on technology and psychology. I loved your thoughts on the biggest misconceptions about the role of wellness or well-being. Thank you for speaking to me about cultural blindness. Thank you also for speaking to me about AI and the role it could play and also coexist with technology. Thank you for speaking to me and good luck to you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me as your guest.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.